Good afternoon. Friends and family of Nicola Bulley have renewed appeals to help find the mother of two a week after she went missing. The 45-year-old disappeared while walking her dog last Friday. Today, her partner, Paul Ansell, said so far every scenario in the search to find her has led to a brick wall, and it's as if she's vanished into thin air. Well, earlier, Nicola's friends gathered in St Michael's on Wye in Lancashire, near to where she was last seen, hoping to get more information on what might have happened to her. With the latest, here's Pablo Taylor.
A week on, but still no closer to finding their loved one. Today, the desperate search for Nicola Bulley continued in earnest as family, friends and strangers appealed for help in finding her. For her partner, it's the ongoing uncertainty that's hardest.
Every single scenario comes to a brick wall, every single one of them. And then all we're doing is sitting there going round and round and round, going through every scenario, and it's just all day long. That's all we're doing. That's all we're doing.
Paul and Nicola have two daughters who he's now desperately trying to protect.
My whole focus is our two girls, just staying as strong as I can for them. I'm scared that if I put any focus into anything else, it's going to take my, focus off that.
Nicola's disappearance remains a mystery, with police maintaining that they have no reason to believe she was attacked. Having left home to walk her dog last Friday, the mum of two never returned. Her phone was later found on a park bench, still connected to a work call. Her former neighbour, Nicola Sr., was one of the many out on the streets this morning. Her children go to the same school as Nicola's.
I think a lot of us with the children were just putting a brave face on, being strong for them. They're at an age where they know things, so you just have to be brave for them.
So far, any potential leads have led to dead ends, but that's not lessened the determination here to find Nicola.
We're never ever going to lose the hope, of course we're not. But right now, it is as though she has vanished into thin air.
The village of St Michael's on Wye is a small but close-knit community, and with each passing day, its resolve grows stronger as it pleads for the safe return of one of its own. Pablo Taylor, ITV News.
Well, our North of England reporter Kelly Foran is in St Michael's on Wye in Lancashire for us this lunchtime. Kelly, where are we in the investigation?
Well, the search operation still very much underway. The helicopter has just been overhead. The police are searching along this river, as are Nicola's friends, where she disappeared 7 days ago, just moments after dropping her two little girls at school. Now, the police have repeatedly said that they don't think that a crime has been committed, and they don't believe that a third party was involved in her disappearance. They say they are treating this as a missing persons inquiry. They are due to give us an update on that later on this afternoon. In the meantime, on the road, you can see behind us here, Nicola's friends and parents from the school were out there this morning with those missing banners, appealing to people who may have made that journey through this village a week ago since Nicola disappeared. Now, this afternoon, the police will give us an update, and as you've heard the family and her partner say, it feels like she's just vanished into thin air. They say this is a complete mystery, but they say it's a mystery that they want solving soon.
All right, Kelly in Lancashire, thank you. A man has admitted to treason after taking a loaded crossbow to Windsor Castle and threatening to kill the late Queen while dressed like something out of a vigilante movie. Jaswant Singh Chahal pleaded guilty at the Old Bailey to intending to injure or alarm the late Queen after he was arrested at Windsor on Christmas Day in 2021. Well, Sangeeta Kandola is at the court for us this lunchtime. Sangeeta, talk us through the case.
Well, Lucrezia, as you say, it was Christmas Day 2021 when Jaswant Singh Chahal scaled the grounds of Windsor Castle using a nylon rope ladder. He was wearing a hood and a mask and, crucially, carrying a crossbow. That crossbow was loaded with a bolt, the safety was off and it was ready to fire. Now the intended target was the late Queen, who was in residence at the time. Now Just1 had been on the grounds for around 2 hours before police spotted him, and they said that he looked something like out of a vigilante movie. When they confronted him, he repeatedly said, "I am here to kill the Queen," before he was, of course, handcuffed and detained. Now, today, the 21-year-old pleaded guilty to serious charges, including one under the Treason Act. He claims he wanted revenge for the treatment of Indians following the massacre in Amritsar in 1919. Now, Chahil, who is unemployed, made his guilty pleas via video link from Broadmoor Hospital. He is due to be sentenced here at the Old Bailey next month.
All right, Sangeeta at the Old Bailey. Thank you. In the last hour, the GMB union has suspended a planned ambulance strike in Wales on Monday. The union says it's called off the action following a pay offer from the Senedd and will now negotiate with the Welsh Government. It is understood the deal amounts to a 6% annual pay rise plus a 1.5% one-off payment. The energy regulator has ordered all energy companies to suspend the force fitting of prepayment meters after an investigation found British Gas debt agents broke into vulnerable people's homes to install them. And now the companies, including British Gas, are under pressure to compensate their customers. Our political correspondent Harry Horton has more.
When 81-year-old Audrey Risdon returned from a short hospital stay, she found a prepayment meter had been forcibly installed in her home. A carer was visiting when her meter credit ran out, leaving her in the cold and dark for hours.
They're actually breaking into people's houses. I mean, what's going on? I mean, these companies are supposed to help people like me, who are vulnerable and on pension credits. And it seems a worry. You never know whether you're going to get cut off or whether they're going to knock at your door. Shouldn't have to live like that. So wrong. So I'm not happy with it.
Hello, it's British Gas or gas supply. We're here with a court warrant. Can you please open the door? Otherwise there are lots of them open it for you.
The practice is under pressure after undercover footage showed debt agents for British Gas breaking into vulnerable people's homes to fit meters.
You can't have a situation where people are having their homes broken into in this way. And you can't have a situation where the companies are making these eye-watering profits in many cases, whilst people are just struggling to make ends meet, often having to decide whether to heat their homes or feed their children.
An estimated 600,000 people were forced onto a prepayment meter last year after racking up debt. Citizens Advice says a further 160,000 people could be switched by the end of this winter unless action is taken. That's on top of the estimated 10 million people already using them. All suppliers have now been asked to suspend forced installations, but one former boss at industry regulator Ofgem says that could become permanent.
If you have an ongoing medical need that requires electricity 24 hours a day, being on a prepayment meter is exactly the wrong place to be. So we need to have a real proper conversation about, is the forced installation of prepayment meters ever appropriate?
British Gas says it will stop forced installations this winter, but longer term the government is under pressure to end the practice altogether. Harry Horton, ITV News.
Well, what if this has already happened to you? Where do you stand if you have a prepayment meter? Joining me now is Simon Francis from the End Fuel Poverty Coalition, and he joins me from Edinburgh. Simon, thank you so much for talking to us this lunchtime. Ofgem has stepped in now. What if you are a customer that has had one of these prepayment meters forcibly put onto you? Where do you stand legally? Can you get it removed?
Well, that's the big question, and this is what we need the government and the energy firms and Ofgem to really start taking action on now, because there's no clear way for these people to get off these prepayment meters at the moment, and no clear way for them to do that without incurring further costs and racking up further debts. We need energy firms to not only commit to a complete ban, and the government needs to enforce this complete ban on prepayment meters. They cannot go back to the old system. This cannot happen again. We cannot be using courts to force people to pay more for their energy. But what we need to see then is a path for people to come back out of prepayment meters onto direct debit tariffs, and to have that set out by energy firms and by the government.
Simon, British Gas has apologised. We know other energy firms are saying they are definitely halting this practice as well. But they're also under pressure now to pay compensation. Is that going to happen for customers?
Well, basically, these customers, if you've been forced onto a prepayment meter against your will, especially using a court warrant, there are now very serious doubts about the legal process that the firms went through to get that warrant in the first place. And we would certainly urge anyone to contact their MP, their Member of Parliament, and raise their case with them, because it's only when the government realises just how many people have been affected by this that we'll actually start to see action. Because you're right, these people have paid more for their energy than people on direct debit. Sometimes this is an average of £200 extra that people have been forced to pay this winter, which in the current situation is just a huge amount of money for people to try and find.
But, you say about writing letters to your MP and that kind of thing, but some of these people are very, very vulnerable people. They just won't be able to do that. They won't have access to that.
Yeah, and that's where charities such as Age UK, Scope, Citizens Advice, they've all been really active in this area, and they are all there to help as well. So if you are nervous about doing that, then they can help and work on your behalf. But don't suffer in silence, because it is really important that we get to the bottom of this scandal, that we find out exactly who's been affected, and we then get them the help that they need to not only get compensation for what they've suffered, but also to ensure that they have a secure, safe energy supply in the future.
And Simon, finally, we think there's around 1 million energy customers who are now in arrears with their suppliers. How can they get beyond that debt? Because they're going to have to pay for energy as well that they need every day.
Well, this is the big conversation that, again, the government needs to start having, because we've seen this mountain of debt rack up over the course of the winter, and clearly we're going to need a solution, and that isn't going to be putting people onto prepayment meters. It's going to be about how do we support these people. We warned at the start of the winter that the support from the government wasn't enough, especially for the most vulnerable households. We said it would cost about £14 billion to support those through this winter. They could have raised that money by closing the loophole in the windfall tax on energy firms. So that's what the government can do, and then it can use those profits to help those people who need it the most.
All right, Simon Francis from the End Fuel Poverty campaign, thank you very much for talking to me this lunchtime. Thank you. Still to come, homes with a view of an underground sewer.
I did chuckle a little bit, and then, of course, you think of the residents like, oh, God bless them.
Plus, we take you to the Stonehenge of the North, open to the public today. But first, the Pentagon says it's tracking a suspected Chinese spy balloon that has been flying over the United States. China has warned against speculation and hype until the facts are verified. From Beijing, our Asia correspondent Debbie Edward has more on the mystery hovering over Montana.
I have no idea what it is.
It is definitely not the moon, and it is certainly not just any wayward, big, white balloon. According to the Pentagon, this high-altitude inflatable was sent by China on a brazen spying mission.
What planet is that?
The US government had been tracking it for days before they revealed what was up there is not another planet. American breakfast shows this morning led with news of a sensational surveillance attempt, revealing the president was given the option of shooting it down.
Some demanding it be shot down, calling it a provocation.
Defense chiefs advised him that was unnecessary and might risk damage on the ground. F-22 fighter jets were sent up to track it and gather intelligence. We haven't been told how, but they confirmed it is Chinese. It is not the first time China has sent across one of its spy balloons, but this one had been lingering over Montana and close to a military site where intercontinental ballistic missiles are stored. Unspecified steps have been taken to mitigate what intelligence it might gather, and the option to shoot it down is still on the table.
The balloon is currently traveling at an altitude well above commercial air traffic and does not present a military or physical threat to people on the ground.
There is always room for humour in even the most serious of situations, and many have been quick with their memes, poking fun at how Mr. Biden might respond to America's arch rival, while others suggested it might be the former president in one of his incarnations. The Chinese government has warned against making any unfounded accusations and called for calm heads.
Before we have a clear understanding of the facts, speculation and hyping up the situation will do no good in resolving the problem properly.
Neither side has said whether this will impact the visit Antony Blinken is due to make to Beijing on Sunday. The Secretary of State's meeting with President Xi Jinping was already set to be a highly charged affair. Now there is another, rather obscure item that will be placed high on the agenda. Debbie Edward, ITV News, Beijing.
Disgraced pop star Gary Glitter has been released from prison after serving half of his 16-year sentence. The 79-year-old paedophile was jailed in 2015 for sexually abusing 3 schoolgirls. Glitter, whose real name is Paul Gadd, will now be subject to licence conditions. The public inquiry into what's been called the worst treatment disaster in the history of the NHS is hearing its final evidence this afternoon. It thought tens of thousands of people were infected with HIV and hepatitis between 1970 and 1991 after being given a contaminated drug or blood transfusion. Around 3,000 of them are believed to have died. And there's major disruption to the rail network as train drivers stage another day of industrial action. Members of the RMT and ASLEF unions have walked out for the second time this week in a long-running dispute over pay and conditions. 15 train operators across the country are running reduced or no services as a result. Next is lunchtime to the new houses and proud homeowners whose views are being spoiled by a giant sewage pipe. It's not quite the tranquil life they imagined when they bought their homes on the estate in Northamptonshire. And as viewers watching in ITV Anglia may have seen, the enormous structure has been compared to the Berlin Wall. Graham Stothard reports from Wellingborough.
Flowing past front doors, by windows, over roads. This is the Stanton Cross sewer pipe. 500 metres long, 1 metre wide, through one of Wellingboroug's newest developments. Dom and Chloe live here and walk past it every day.
Don't get me wrong, fantastic bit of engineering, but do I want it outside my house? No. Any family member that's come round, they've asked, oh my God, what is that about? How can you live with that outside your window? And also when you're driving down past it, it's filthy, it's covered in mud. It just looks absolutely awful.
It went up in mid-December following the discovery of 2 leaks underground.
The folks up here have now got a new Christmas present.
David Pennell is a vlogger from Wellingborough. He was among the first to film it.
I have never seen anything like that on that kind of scale, especially there right on this new build. I mean, these houses haven't even been up for a year and a half. So to see that, I did chuckle a little bit. And then, of course, you think of the residents like, oh, God bless them.
It runs from a nearby pumping station, up the hill, around the corner, over the road and back into the ground.
The pipe is necessary because it's keeping people's services running and it's protecting the environment, which is the most important thing. We've been in direct contact with the local residents right from the beginning, and we're very thankful for their patience while we've been undertaking this work, but it's very necessary.
Residents are keeping their sense of humour, likening it to the Berlin Wall, the Mario Brother video games, even the 8th wonder of the world. Anglian Water says it'll be sorted by the end of March. In the meantime, normal life continues. Even the windows get cleaned, allowing for a crystal clear view of the pipe. Graham Stothard, ITV News, Wellingborough.
And finally, talking of the wonders of the world, many of us know Stonehenge, but have you ever heard of the Thornborough Henges? Well, they are huge ancient monuments in North Yorkshire, dating back thousands of years and are being compared to the famous stones in Wiltshire. And from today, the Henges are open for all to see. Julia Breen has been there too.
This might seem like an unassuming field in the middle of North Yorkshire, but I'm actually standing in the centre of a giant henge built by Neolithic man more than 5,000 years ago. Now, there are 3 of these henges stretching a mile across the Yorkshire landscape. And until today, unless you were local or an archaeologist, you probably haven't heard of them. But these are older than Stonehenge, older even than the Great Pyramids in Egypt. And I have to say, standing in the middle of this central henge, it's absolutely breathtaking. Now, it's thought these were for ceremonial use, but the real use of the whole site remains shrouded in mystery.
We're not quite sure, but we're really happy that people come here and imagine and wonder and just come into the centre of the Henges and just really enjoy the space and think about how different life was then, or how similar it was to what's going on now with their own lives. It's ritual, trading, pilgrimage, a whole variety of things are happening here. And we can only kind of speculate as to what those were. But they would have been different things happening in different parts of this bit of moorland. As I say, one sort of thing or several things happening inside, but a completely different set of things that would happen outside, because it's a ritual and a sacred space, probably.
Now, this has been private land until today, when quarrying company Tarmac gifted the 2 henges that it owns to the nation. Now the public can visit here for free, and it'll be looked after by English Heritage. And this site, so important that it's known as the Stonehenge of the North, will be preserved for future generations.
Julia Breen reporting from the Thornborough Henges in North Yorkshire. That is it for now. Charlene is back at 6:30. The news where you are follows the weather, but from everyone on Lunchtime. Bye-bye.